Greetings and welcome to Liminal Light, a show that explores the languages of myth and star, earth, sky, tongue, and spirit through weekly astrological forecasts. I'm your host, Chris. Enjoy. Time is the skeleton upon which manifestation is the flesh, and so time births reality. It receives it and provides hooks from which to hang. Saturn is the structure in nothing, the something so that anything is not everything. And so what happens when Saturn and Uranus are trine? As they are now and culminating to partile on November 10th, Uranus is innovation, rebellion, experimentation, and explosive freedom, whereas Saturn is structure, hierarchy, bondage, boundary, chronology, and mortality. Uranus brims with stolen, immortal fire, and Saturn looms with a sickle. To be trine one another puts the two in harmony. Saturn in Sagittarius driving towards ultimate endgames, and Uranus in Aries performing expressions of indivisible freedom. To one side, there is the struggling through mandatory internments to reach eventual freedoms, where one must make minuscule progress each day to achieve liberation. Then there is the blowing up of the dungeons entirely. But Saturn is total and final. There may be another larger jail which contains the one you destroyed. There is also the permanent rebellion, a state of perpetual mutation that cannot be altered, like John Carpenter's The Thing. Uranus shakes a paradigm until its foundation cracks. An experiment that yields astounding results. The realization spurring forth cannot be reversed. There is no going back to the way reality was once conceptualized. The 60s could not contract back into the 50s. Saturn does share an intimate connection with the permanence inherent in Uranus's function. When humans received fire, it could not be undone. We were no longer clay things, but flesh and blood, with the spark of life, like it or not. In a most straightforward interpretation, Uranus in Aries says that this is my true identity, and I'll destroy anything in my way to express it entirely. Since it is a trine, and harmonization with bondage and parameters is implied, it is perhaps an experimental and innovative use of Saturn's laws that allows Uranus' torch to be born. Saturn is in late Sagittarius. By sign, this is fire trine fire, spirit trine spirit. The spirit of relentless dedication in the face of all adversity is what is necessary for personal revolution to come to pass. If your life is to be permanently revolutionized by this trine, you must be unyielding in your drive, while still being respectful, yet inventive with the hard facts of life. This overarches this week and that to come, as well as our entire year past in series, as Saturn and Uranus completed trines on December 24th of 2016 and May 19th of 2017. This harmonization of the rules and revolutionary freedom has been a pivotal component to this fiery year we are closing down on. Many people went through dramatic transitions, blasting out an area of their life, the lifestyle demo work essential to expand a part of themselves into or build something entirely new. Perhaps Saturn entering Capricorn on the solstice will initialize the process of serious and long-lasting construction within this space. Mercury enters the second decan of Sagittarius at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on November 12th. Sagittarius has a very motivational disposition. The man on the soapbox talking big that gathers a crowd and maybe even a following. The inception of a movement, looking back into that dusty afternoon where it all began. This is the stuff of epic documentary. Sagittarius wants to get on the move, and there are goals and resources that need to be consolidated. People must be assembled and causes to rally around. Questing requires an initial rousing. Mercury spent the first decan of Sagittarius being the motivational speaker at best and the propagandist at worst. In the second phase, he gains further command over the communication skills necessary to keep a burgeoning movement snowballing, but can no longer discern what is real and what is merely an assumption. It ceases to matter, in the heat of things, whether he read this or that, or if it just seems to fit. The propulsion of the event supersedes the brass tacks, and Mercury throws all the scraps of fact and intuitive blank fillers into the manuscript, which he is more than happy to read live on the air, at which point word becomes law. You heard it. I said it on TV. It's real now. It's true. Let's do this thing. The information gatherer and compiler suits Mercury well enough, in a sign that he thinks more about the big picture than the details, and Sage's penchant for synthesizing disparate parts ain't so bad either, although it causes major problems for normally neutral Mercury's powers of accuracy and discernment. The messenger arrives bearing election cards and manifestos. Vote yes on 666, 777, 93, and 108. The sun transitions to Scorpio's third phase earlier that day. In the wee hours, dreams might shift to the transgressive, and upon waking we might find ourselves with the worldview of one desire fulfilled after another, moving from satiation to satiation, never truly or completely satisfied, as a framework for reality. Passerby might try to engage us about the weather, but we move toward our fixation, as if beckoned on by phantom fumes. An outlook of shamelessness when negative, tantric, or at least mindfully transgressive when positive. Reread Bataille's Story of the Eye, Gombrowicz' Cosmos, Rob Grier's The Voyeur, Huysman's Au Revoir, Balzac's The Girl with the Golden Eyes, Gautier's Miltona. Might as well bone up, since Monday, November 13th hosts Jupiter and Venus's conjunction at 7 degrees Scorpio, 3 a.m. This could easily be an abundance of debauchery, too much of a good thing. Focus on the philosophies of seduction and indulgence, transgression with a higher coherence, high-minded lusts that expound upon the pleasures and knowledge of poison, more prickly ambrosials quaffed during death rebirth ordeals. For some, this could be feasting or splurging, but for the actively scorpionic, it could be read as is, and reading itself also applies. Mercury has ceased to be our underworld detective, but Jupiter still intends on expanding our minds to what the occult annals offer. If you are of literate inclination to take great pleasure in bibliophilism, then please indulge. Even if this is wine poured until you can only decipher the text with one eye closed. Persistence, which I personally find a noble quality. The books will undoubtedly be cast aside as Mercury squares Neptune in the early evening. This is maybe a signal that the possible inebriations a Scorpio benefic pileup implies are more than imagined, as our primary communicator will be debilitated by watery fantasy, and after splash chromatic of lustral floods, this being the sea spray of Nereid folly, like a Franz von Mieris drunken scene's aftermath, speaking with a mouthful of sausage and dice after nights within drapes of wine. Despite Jupiter beginning to pull up the covers from his head and emerge from beneath the beams, hangovers of some sort are likely, as the moon conjoins Mars in Libra, square to Pluto in Capricorn on the 14th. The classic hangover paranoia, colloquially referred to as the fear, passive-aggressive panic, and alarming emotions brought on by horror of holes in the structure, fright at shadows, instilling irritated sentiments which lead to divisive fraudulence and pretensive behavior, or physical accidents that somersault into liaisons with scary or dangerous people. Sound confusing? How'd you get in this mess? I don't know, it just kinda happened, but you gotta help me out. The roulette results of a moral bender, or maybe just a sudden clarity of just how deep-ace things actually are. The philosophical and spiritual ground of all this is sought out as the current scorpionic activity comes to light in coherence, rendering these themes more beneficial in general. Jupiter has been purified by the sun. Shortly after Venus enters the second decan of Scorpio, on November 15th, as Mars in the second phase of Libra can get locked in close combat, Venus in Scorpio's mids attempt to sustain statues of pleasure and intense intimacy, like deep shacking up, hedonistic partnerships like pleasure clenched and passed fist to fist, clasped in lust, feeding into one another. Venus ruling the arts, especially the beauty and aesthetic of mutual transformation, temperately expressed. This is people fixated on one another, of passionate embraces. Think Briar P. Orridge and Lady J's plastic surgery project. On November 16th, the Sun from Scorpio's third phase trines Chiron in Pisces, while simultaneously Venus trines Neptune from the same pair of signs. Visions identify us with how poison can both hurt as well as heal. And if it is for a lifetime or more, or merely the space of a tryst, we step upon the poison path, where allies await with entheogens, such as the expanding and enlivening traditions of ayahuasca, which may dilate our world story, a primary figure of our human narrative. The ability and opportunity to be healed by Hecate's garden, where medicine and poison are not just substance, but also personae. The rending of the veil can subsede materialist doom, and it is the reality glimpsed in which we might collaborate with all that we feel and touch and even say or think as living just like us, that a greater collaboration is possible, one in which sickness is obliterated or unrecognizably recontextualized. Venus in fantastical form, from choreobantic clamor, rises pleasure and beauty, a hallucinatory vision of the wrathful feminine divine. Sun and Venus, Helios and Hecate, an archaic duality that articulates a varied version from the one classical culture took and ran with. And it might be a time non-anachronistic stance, free of Luddite trappings, be seriously considered en masse. If we could say the entire globe drinks ayahuasca on this night, we might be onto something, even if we are a century off, but maybe it's a bit sooner than we imagine. Feel free to brew your own concoctions on the 16th. The moon also comes to conjoin Jupiter and then Venus throughout the day. The themes of this experience allow a letting go of old philosophical paradigms and fixations, cleansing by deeply felt purgation and ecstatic vision, pharmacokatharsis. The new moon will occur at 7 a.m. EST, so for many, the evening of the 17th will be when their petitions are made and their ritual schedule begins. That being a Friday, so a Mars night highlights a curious aspect by planetary condition and sign. Mercury sextiles Mars while both planets are in detriment. Could enthusiasm surrounding misconstrued facts lead to negative alliances between people? Could locked conflicts become assisted by drives toward half-truths? This confusing aspect might also be full of insights from the previous day's mystical healing experiences, lending us the clever power to manage unlikely circumstances in such a way that they accommodate and oblige each other. Alchemy that transforms half-baked ideas and problematic allegiances into positive opportunities and bolsterings. Simply the supportive hand of fortune, the divine intervention of a heavenly, celestial, or infernal guardian, whatever is your cup of tea. The basic schema is displayed in plenty of gangster type or general high-stakes narratives, ragtag collaborations that succeed from 30% cleverness and 70% sheer luck. Keep things clean and simple. Avoid laying additional tripwires or involving too many people. Say your prayers and light your votives. Make sure there are offerings on the altar. This is general practice, but this would be a good period to not skimp and also to gravitate toward the conservative. Put the Christian prayers back into the invocation for the week, so to speak. Things are taking a dive either way, and from here on, and you don't want everything pulled down because it's heavy with ill virtue and foolishness. All right, welcome back, Bonnie.
Hello, Chrissy.
How you doing?
Great. How about yourself?
Grand.
Good to be back. We took a week off.
Yeah, we had power outage. There was a nor'easter.
Yeah. Went south.
Yeah. Well, today we welcome Wileyjack, the dollhouse artist extraordinaire. What's going on, Wiley?
Not too much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're in the middle of a project right now, huh?
I am, yep.
Yeah, can you kind of explain what you do and what your approach is, and then maybe just talk about what you're working on right now?
Okay, well, I collect dollhouses, and I'm really into making scenes inside every room. I really go for the darker scenes that people really wouldn't want to see. Not like violent or anything, but maybe just stimulatingly uncomfortable. I really like abandoned places, stuff that has a lost feel to it.
Yeah, that's perfect for right now, because we have we have Venus and Jupiter and the sun all in Scorpio.
It relates nicely to the astrological weather of this coming week.
Yeah, when Bonnie was going over my notes, she was like, this is really dark, this is like a really dark time. And it can be, but I was explaining that it's kind of just the way a movie would feel like a film that's like a total psychological drama, like Possession or Dogtooth, or even stuff in Twin Peaks.
Dogtooth is so dark, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I mean by that is like life isn't necessarily going to be that way, but those movies are interesting, and they're compelling to watch, and they're topics that you discuss with people that they're hard to grapple with, and so it's not just quick conversations like, did you see that movie where the guy like fell off that like hayride, and you're like, haha, that was so funny, you're like really have to pick this shit apart, and it's just the type of themes that are out and about in Scorpio period. I mean, we talk a lot about sex and death during Scorpio time, and illicit behavior, fixation, manipulation, seduction, etc. But it's those themes can come out in a number of ways, and some of them are going to be internal. Scorpio is also very much like secrecy and private affairs, like so some of it's internalized, some of it's literally going to be the kind of movies or art you're attracted to during this period, and some of it is literally going to be the kind of stuff you want to read right now, or the kind of stuff you want to ponder, as well as maybe for some people it might directly be transgressive behavior. Which I think, Bonnie, you pointed out before, that would be maybe...
Could save you, yeah.
Yeah, it could save you. That's maybe for
you have to put this energy somewhere. So.
Yeah, totally. Channel it. Yeah, and there's definitely a BDSM kind of themes to your work, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not like that's not the topic, but
yeah.
But sex is very much part of everyone's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you don't have a partner, you know what I mean? Like, it's still there. So,
yeah.
Why not?
That's a really good way to say it.
My topics are the truth. What's really, really there.
Right. Totally. Yeah, that's interesting. There's looking at some of these. Where was it coming from? I think it was some of these lunar mansion talismans I was looking into, where some of them, like, it's like you do this at this time, you make this image on this metal or whatever, and one of the effects was to be able to see into people's homes. I think it's some of the spirits of like the grimoires will do this for you too, where they give you the ability to just see right into the houses, and that made me think of the stuff you do, and just kind of, everyone's fascinated with like a house with the facade cut off where you can see into every room,
Yeah, or like everyone, or not everyone, but you know, like when you drive around or walk around and people have their windows open and you can look straight in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, it's just a fish tank effect. It's like, oh, I can peek right in there, especially like the second floor. Because
Yeah,
then they're
totally.
like, oh,
Yeah.
they assume that no one can just see in there. You know what I mean? But like, you know, from angles like driving up or something, you know, you can just like take a peek of someone's just sitting there. They're just totally chilling in their own fucking world. Everybody's in their own little world there.
Yeah, totally.
A glimpse into something private and sacred for them.
Yeah, or even
Yeah,
something
absolutely.
just kind of like subconscious. Like you're not always, I mean, you're always thinking, but you're not thinking the way you are when you're out and about. You know, when you're in your house, you can go into this automatic mode that it's strange for someone else to be watching that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like just the houses too as kind of creatures. Like there's a couple times, you know, you're driving around in the country and you see for some reason some house where the front fell off or it got sawzalled off or something. And you're like, oh wow, you know, just seeing the different rooms. I guess maybe it's something that gets imprinted in us as children, but and also like I think I've seen that in Philly too a long time ago before Philly was so gentrified. There was a house with no face on it that you could see the upstairs and downstairs, and there's like pit bulls like tied up in the basement, and then, like on the second or third floor there's like barrel fires going. Yeah.
Love it. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
It's like gangs in New York.
Yeah, totally. It's like gangs of New York.
It's like, well, you know, elderly folks downstairs, you know, like retiring, and just, you know, like everyone's in their own zone.
Yeah, so what's the one you're working on right now?
Oh, I have a little showboat, like those water wheel showboats that went up and down the Mississippi, like uber pink and white, and it's really cute.
Sounds amazing.
Does it actually float?
No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, I wish it did. It has lights on it and it lights up and everything. So, you know, but it
That's
doesn't
really good,
float.
though.
It's just
Wow.
a model
Lights
of
are
one.
great.
Yeah, is this the
Like
first?
it has like light fixtures in it.
Oh yeah,
Oh
Yeah.
wow, that's nice.
Yeah,
yeah. It
Have
really
you-
lights up the pink.
have you done a non-house before?
Have I done a non-house? I mean, you know, I mean, I dabble in scenes. It doesn't have to be just the inside of a house, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any zone can be, you know, like sacred or someone's sanctuary. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
It could be a nest. It could be like the corner where wind doesn't blow around, like some steps in the corner of that building. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
It could be that. But
Yeah, like a place
that
to
is
even
that.
just a place to huddle, you know.
Exactly, a huddle spot. But like the grass is tamped down right there because it's been huddled in. You know?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Yeah, impressions, you know. And yeah, actually, speaking of impressions, for anyone that's been following your stuff for a couple years, it's definitely, we talked about this last time we spoke, but it's gotten more impressionistic recently, which I thought was really interesting, you know, where it's just kind of, the first ones are really intense scenes, and there's like a lot going on, like there's like multivalent activity, but the recent ones sometimes will just focus on a single thing and capture kind of an essence that's hard to articulate or hard to, it's something that escapes, you know, as you're trying to say it.
I totally hear what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I've found more beauty in just like smaller things, or just one not as crowded as an image. Like there could be just as emotions in like two tiny objects sitting on a table.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool
It doesn't
to see.
be an elaborate soldier like crying or anything or like questioning anything, you know.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be elaborate. All it has to do is like basically like trigger that one feeling of something that you probably didn't want to feel and that you were trying to work out of.
Yeah, this is great having you on for this period. This definitely applies to all the astrology right now. I was saying to Bonnie when we were talking about the darkness and some of the stuff coming up that it's like when you're doing or reading about or engaged in shadow work, you know, and you're like, okay, we're gonna get really deep into this side of ourselves that we just completely repress and just reintegrate that back into ourselves so that we can be like have mastery over that it doesn't become like the elephant in the closet. But so and that it's a lot of things that you don't want to feel. Like I think in one of those aspects is coming up in this coming week because they tend to have to do in astrology with Chiron, like which is like the wound you have, like your life wound that you're born with. And yeah, the sun in Chiron,
Trine Chiron.
Trine Chiron, yeah. What date is that?
That's the 16th.
Yeah, on the 16th, the sun.
Is that how you say it? I've always wondered that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like Chiron is like the wounded healer from mythology. He was a centaur that was he was like the mythological healer in the pantheon, basically, and he traded in his immortality it got traded in for the freedom of Prometheus, who is tied to the stone, having his liver eaten, and every day. And so he got wounded by an arrow in the ankle that was laced with the blood of a gorgon, and then he lost his immortality. So he was archetypally like wounded and the healer. And so we're born with it's a planetoid. It's not officially a planet, but it's a large body in our solar system. And we're born with it at some place in our chart that that particular point is something that we always kind of like, we cringe at whenever we have to deal with that one thing. Like if it's in, it's been in Pisces, in late Pisces, and Pisces is the end of the zodiac and has a lot to do with finally letting go of things. And so this whole time it's been there, it's like the pain of letting go, you know. I think we talked about this a lot last broadcast, but trine the sun in Scorpio, and also what's the other thing that's happening at the same time with Venus is trine Neptune at the same time. So Venus in Scorpio gets very fixated on pleasure and indulgence, and if you just think about Venus in general and like the vegetal goddess, and Neptune is like illusion and hallucination. The whole thing comes out to be kind of a recipe to me that really looks like an ayahuasca ceremony, like a healing ceremony of purge and catharsis, like from plant allies and poisons, you know, just one of those immense psychedelic experiences that pull everything out of you and kind of reprocess it. And maybe they may or may not seem painful at the time. It's almost kind of like they just rend the veil so you see this other reality, like how psilocybin, even in laboratory testing now, like is almost proving to like instantly and completely cure depression, like immediately, you know. Just the world becomes more than the sum of its parts suddenly in these experiences, you know, and that a lot of these traumas they're sort of obliterated in that change of perspective, you know.
Wow. It's heavy.
Yeah, totally. It's heavy, but it's good, you know. I think it would be a good date.
That'd be awesome. That would be, yeah.
Yeah, November.
Shake the womb that he was born with. Yeah. That would
Yeah,
be,
totally. Yeah. Yeah, November.
That would be fucking top.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. That would be the goal. November 16th, in that case, would be a good day for people to do something like that if they were so inclined. You know, whatever your potion may be, whatever your go-to is, or even if you want to try something new, that would be a good day to summon plant allies that can provide a transformation, transformative experience, like from entheogens.
But if trying something new, it's best to not be like working with spirits directly, I think, as far as herbs are concerned.
Yeah, try it once first,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. The advice
Do
is like,
the dress rehearsal or whatever.
yeah, do the dress rehearsal. Try the drug first before the ritual. Try the ritual first before the drug, and then do them together. That's advice from Sarah Lawless, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Which I thought was really on point. So
As per usual.
Let's go to the beginning of the
Yeah,
list.
let's
and
start
just
off
going
with
through them.
today, or you wanna go as far back? Let's start today. Well, the day that this will be played, which is November 12th, Sunday. We have the sun entering Scorpio 3, and we also have Mercury entering Sag 2.
Okay, yeah. The third decan of Scorpio, and the first decan of Scorpio, you get like that. Well, the sun is always, as a reminder, the sun is always like our vision. It's one of our eyes. The sun and the moon are the two luminaries that are our eyes. And the sun is like our intellect, and the moon is our emotions. And so it's how we look at the world and how we identify with it. It's our vision of things, that like our kind of our worldview or orientation. And we form our identities from that. And when the sun is in Scorpio 3, the first decan of Scorpio is like that, animals in mating season, and that kind of draw that, that you can't tell an animal in mating season to not mate. You can't just be like, you can't distract them with, you couldn't like tell. It's not like a dog where you just can distract it with like cookies or something.
No, absolutely not.
And it's also predators after their prey. It's that really primal lust and chase. And then in the second,
becomes a hunger.
Yeah, it's insatiable hunger. And then the second decan of Scorpio, it's like that is attained, like the mating is happening, or the predator sees its prey, and there's some sort of a mutual transformation, that happens, like two animals mating, or they're creating, their DNA is interlacing now, like they're creating a new being, or one animal consumes another animal and their whole body changes, like chromosomally, there's proteins entering them and they're building new body structures. So it's very like alchemical level of interaction between two people, or that kind of fixation and relationship dynamic. It's like I think I wrote in the forecast, it's like the second decan of Scorpio is kind of like heavy shacking up. You like really pair off with someone and go deep. But so the sun entering the third decan is like after that experience, but you're still in the Scorpio mode. It's like moving from one object of desire to the next object of desire, and it's kind of like that restless. It's like a worldview of that. Like the world is, your experience of life is just nothing but getting one desire fulfilled after the next. And so there's potential to slip into that way of looking at things, and it's just I think I mentioned there's a
Well, it seems like there isn't, because it says like moving from satiation to satiation, but perhaps there's no satiation whatsoever if you like are continually having to move to the next thing.
Yeah, I
that
guess,
like adds a frantic quality to it.
I guess it's like the satiation is not sustained. Like in the second decan is all about sustaining.
It's like addiction.
Pleasure. Yeah, then this one is like as soon as you're done with one, you're on to the next. And so there's a potential to be for shameless behavior and but also for like mindful kind of tantric transgression. So yeah, just telling people to watch out. But yeah, you should take notes. These are Wiley. These are definitely themes that could go right into your scenes that you're creating.
Yeah, right? That sounds great. Like, wow, what a week building up.
Yeah, totally. And then Mercury entering Sagittarius, too, is kind of all of Mercury in Sagittarius has the potential to be like the spectrum of like the motivational speaker. Sagittarius is really like, let's get all our resources together. We got a project. It's like Sagittarius is really quest oriented. It's like that getting philosophical fire going. So you're like, people are roused and they're like, let's motivate. And of course, Mercury being in charge of language there is going to take that role specifically, kind of being like the one speaking, the one putting together the speech. It's maybe the guy who speaks to introduce the speaker, you know, like get everyone pumped up before the dude comes on.
Is this thing on?
Yeah, totally. But it's really easy for him to just say whatever he needs to say to get people to just get excited, and then forget that he was kind of using some devices, and structure a whole like dogma around the scraps of ideas he's blended with what he just kind of filled in the blanks with. And I think we all know people like that, you know, who they just kind of, they're telling you
ramble,
yeah, but they're telling you as what sounds like facts, just kind of what they think is true, you know.
If I think it is.
Yeah, totally.
Basically.
Yeah, I think in the forecast I brought it to the point where it's like, and you know, this applies right now. We're on the radio. You know, if you said it officially on the radio, then it's true. Like after this, like I have proof. I can play back this recording and be like, see, it was broadcast. This is the truth.
Yeah, basically, if you hear it on any sort of electrical device or see it typed out on a screen, it's a fact forever.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
exactly. Yeah, that's a
That is it. There's no way somebody would do it and it not be true.
right. Yeah.
So
Imprinted
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's basically exactly what we're talking about, is that watch out for that, as Mercury's in this sign, and Mercury's actually going to go retrograde in this sign and be in it for quite a while until almost January, until like late December.
So don't get wrapped up in some
Are you
news
kidding
story.
me?
Yeah. So
Damn.
it's a real potential, like, so right now it's like and he's just entering his shadow period on the 15th. So anything that happens from the 15th on up until the retrograde and through the retrograde, it's like all of that stuff that's said or what seems to be true or what someone's trying to sell you on. And this is like in our personal lives, but also on like a global scale, could be overturned, you know, because like there's such a potential for propaganda, with like motivational propaganda with Mercury and Sagittarius. A lot of what's said like from mid-November on, a lot of it's going to be contended later. Like retrogrades always bring up like, oh, wait a minute, let's revisit that thing. That doesn't seem to be right, or that was disproven, or things come up from the past that are revealed, or secrets are suddenly exposed. So especially with all this stuff in Scorpio, is very like secrets and manipulation. So, I mean, you know, if that, be careful of that in your day to day, you know, but I think we'll probably see it more in the news, you know. I'm sure we're going to just, those kind of stories are going to
It's going to be a mess. Yeah.
It's going to be a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, right when you said that, I thought globally, you know what I mean? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, you know, I totally agree. I totally agree with what, and it seems to be, it's always this time of year, like whatever happens, basically the year is done as of like Halloween. Nothing else is going to get done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all vacations and toasting and boasting for the rest of the year.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it totally
Which backs up everything that you just said. And then I was wondering, how much of like these mega political leaders, do you think they have like some sort of motivational person or some sort of like astrological person being like, hey, you should deliver a sandwich on this day That's a question I want to ask you.
Yeah, for sure.
I think so.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, historically that has been the case.
Yeah, totally.
Right? To give it the most power to deliver, right? I mean,
yeah, it was.
That's how it is.
Definitely like
Right.
was it is it Nixon and Reagan? Reagan especially had like tons of astrologers, and then
You would think that Nixon probably didn't have astrologers, considering what happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if he did, they were bad. But I know Reagan, and then I feel like they used to talk about that. They were like, "Oh, check it out, this politician has astrologers," and then eventually
They're like, stop talking about that.
yeah, I think it just goes without saying now.
Astrologers are weird.
Especially in like the yeah, especially in the even in money too, you know, like and corporations are obviously running things more than anything else, even, you know, in whatever the deep state secret way or whatever. We're not going to turn this into a conspiracy show, but if I know, you know, like there's methods they use for day trading, and then that they're pretty clear, you know, like they use this thing called the Egyptian terms or bounds, where it's like this unequal division of the zodiac. That's like each planet has some sort of foothold in each section, you know, that's kind of arbitrarily cut up, and day traders have astrologers that will just specialize in this kind of thing, where they watch the moon going through these bounds or term zones, and when it's like in Saturn, they're like, don't do anything, and then right when it goes into Mercury, they're like, sell, 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 and then as soon as it like switches signs again, they're like, okay, stop, you know, or buy, and they just kind of they'll just ride it, they'll surf it astrologically. So I mean, you know, they're doing everything that way. And I think specifically throughout this last election, so much of the weird stuff that happened with Trump and Hillary occurred on days that were just so screwed up astrologically. Like they were, you know, most of the astrologers predicted Trump would lose, and then a lot of them had to be like explain later why they thought that, but why they were wrong maybe. But if you look at the days everything happened on, it almost seems astrologically elected to win against odds, because they were astrologically chosen days, you know, to kind of get in there a different way. I can't rattle off the specifics off the top of my head, and it's probably complex to listen to anyway, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Huh.
Is that your new dog?
Is that Pepper Jack?
Yeah, you hear that thing going? Trying to get in on it. Hey.
Well, Bon, what do we have next?
So it seems like on November 13th, you're going to drink like 4 or 5 bottles of amazingly good wine. And then in the evening or later on, you're going to be completely confused and and perhaps get into like some sort of spy game.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, because that's Jupiter conjunct Venus and Scorpio, so it's both benefics there. Venus is saying, yeah, pleasure, absolutely, and then Jupiter is saying like, sure, more and more pleasure, and even like,
let's make this pleasure big.
Yeah, and even get into the philosophy of pleasure, you know, where it's like you start toasting to toasting itself, you know, like making speeches about drinking, you know, be like, I toast to toasting, is it, you know, and I feel like we've definitely been there. And then later in the evening, that's when we have Mercury square Neptune, and Neptune always just screws with Mercury. Neptune is, you know, literally like confusion, illusion, hallucination. Neptune can even mean like cinema and photography, because it's not real. You see an image that's like a fake version of reality, you know. And so Mercury does the research and the communication and the translation of everything. And so having this like conjunction appear earlier that really points to overindulgence, and then having something that literally looks like you can't speak right, you know, or your speech is very confused, like directly after it. And then
What's this here, Josh?
yeah, totally, yeah, yeah. What's this here, Josh? And that's how that goes. But like and then the next morning you have the moon conjunct Mars, which is just like feeling bad, being like, ouch, like squaring Pluto, which is just being like, I don't know what's going on. I don't feel right, But I think the way I put it in the forecast is that because Mars in the second decan of Libra has potential for making alliances with people that are negative and just like rushing into them, like impulsively being like, someone offers you some work and you're like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And then you're like, I hate this guy and this is a bad deal and I might not even get paid right. And now you start acting wrong at work because you don't even want to be there. It's like there's passive aggressive behavior possible.
And you're pretty sure that they're doing you wrong. You're just
yeah.
But then like Jupiter emerges from the beams.
Yeah, and then
beautiful.
So yeah, you get coherence of the situation at that point. Like you're, and having it even be a square to Pluto, it can literally mean like, I think I wrote like shady deals, like back alley deals that like maybe like your night of debauchery and your loose lips led you to like agree to things that were not a good idea, and you wake up and being like, oh my God, I made a deal with that guy.
I like how you wrote, or accidents lead to liaisons with scary or dangerous people.
Yeah, scary or dangerous people.
Stay indoors.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And don't let anyone like dollhouse into your house,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, shades drawn, people.
Yeah, but it's the moon, so it's brief. But Mars, will linger for a little bit longer. But yeah, there's kind of a ride there, because then right after that we get you kind of see the debaseness of the whole situation, and with Jupiter coming out of the beams, and you kind of gain coherence of how dirty the whole scene is.
Do you want to explain what emerging from the beams means?
Yeah. So the beams are when a planet is within 15 degrees of the sun. So when you see Venus as the evening star, you see her right at when it becomes dark, and then she goes below the horizon. And as she gets closer to the sun, you don't see her anymore. She's too close to the sun to be seen. During the day, she's right next to the sun, and obviously it's too bright, you can't see stars. And at night, she ducks below the horizon like too soon before it gets dark. And then eventually she gets on the other side of the sun, and she becomes far enough to the other side that she's out of that condition, and you begin to see her in the morning right before the sun comes up. So all the planets become under the beams when they come to conjunct with the sun. And for the outer planets, the planets on the other side of Earth, it's a big loop, a big cycle where every time they conjunct the sun, it's like the beginning of a new cycle of whatever that planet's about. So it just happened with Jupiter. So with Jupiter coming up from under the beams, it's like a new cycle, a year-long cycle of like new philosophies and new spiritualities and new high-minded ideals. And it's in Scorpio, so it has, for lack of other way to explain it or a more elaborate way to explain it, it has kind of like a dark or occult connotation to it.
Cool.
So I like Jupiter and Scorpio. I have that in my chart. I was born with that, but people that have that when that happens, there tends to be a kind of picking up of witchcraft and the occult, like in the monoculture, in like, in the mainstream.
Then we have November 15th, when Venus enters the second decan of Scorpio.
Yeah, I mean, we're just getting a lot of Scorpio, a lot of it's just a heavy Scorpio period. All this stuff of like sex, death, rebirth, like poison, fixation, is just a theme. I think it's just people are just gonna have to kind of find for themselves like where that's at for them and what to do with that. And I think Wiley, you're like, what you do with it is such a good example of like a positive way to process all those themes. You know, there's some of us love those themes and live in that all the time, but for some people that it's more turbulent, it'd be cool to look into the stuff you do more and, you know, see how you can grab something else out of there.
I think. Cool.
So,
take that as a compliment.
Who are you doing this current piece for?
Who am I doing it for?
Yeah,
Jen-
For myself.
Oh, I thought you said you had a deadline coming up.
Oh no, I just put another piece that had a deadline. I did a canopy bed, right?
Oh.
Yeah, I did a little canopy bed. Uber Girl has a nice belt wrapped around it, and it has this this factory. It has a factory tucked in the bed with a blanket over it, and the bed has a nice thick braid and a pen to represent mother. The hand-carved bone mother bone. And that was the deadline, and that was for a fundraiser for Puerto Rico.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
Where
Part
was
of our silent auction.
Where was that at?
It's here in Minneapolis. It's here at Modern Times Cafe.
Oh, cool.
Wow. Just for listeners, if they want to look at images of what you do, can you give them some information?
Oh yeah, I have an IG account, and I am Macho Femme Man. That's MACHOFEMMEMAN.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, I found this. I found an antique town outside of it. It's like out in the suburbs, and there's like one of those antique malls, and it has just like uber old ladies in there. I go chill with them and just get through all the stuff they got. It's in a town called Hopkins, I think. Yeah, Hopkins.
Yeah, you collect stuff from all around though, huh?
Oh yeah.
Should people contact you if they have stuff?
Absolutely, yeah. I take any kind of donations at absolutely. Right now, I'm actually currently trying to do an abandoned dollhouse series in my basement. I'm trying to collect as many and just have them set up in my basement for a show later on in the midwinter, hopefully on the full moon of February. And just have nothing but abandoned shacks downstairs in my moldy basement. It'll be really nice, really ambient with the same place, and really mess with the scale, and then I'm going to have a show upstairs in my place full of furniture.
Wow.
So, it should, yeah.
Yeah, you should explain a little bit about what you mean about messing with the scale.
Well, I do so many small scenes, like my scale is like, alright, for instance, there's a picture I did, a scene that I did a few weeks ago. Excuse me. It's on my page, and it's 2 pink drawers filled with junk, like clutter. And a friend of mine was talking to me in person, and they were asking me, they're like, "What is that, a dresser that you have?" And I'm like, "No, that's not a dresser. Those drawers are 1/2 inch tall." Like,
Crazy.
They didn't understand that was in miniature.
Yeah.
And then, they thought it was an actual drawer. They were like, "Dude, you're just taking pictures of drawers." No,
Yeah.
man. The drawer is 1/2 inch tall, dude. Really look at it. So when I when I do these rooms and they look realistic, I want to do a full-size room with the same size, with like similar beat-up moldy furniture, in the same chipped, water-stained carpet, moldy smell, the fuzzy smell that the dehumidifier doesn't get out of,
Yeah,
the
totally.
room.
I haven't. Yeah, you should definitely get into the smells too. That's
Yeah, I wish. Well, that's basically why I'm gonna have the show in my own moldy basement.
right. Yeah.
Because that'll really get the point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm, like this dirty, obsessed world that people basically hire people to go in and clean to get rid of. Man, there's still beauty in certain stuff. You know what I mean? Not everything is totally garbage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think that does it
Just
time-wise, but this is...
You can't eat off of it. What's that?
This kind of does it time-wise, but that's perfect. Perfect for this episode, talking about all this Scorpio stuff. This has been a great chat.
Great.
Thank you for listening to Liminal Light. Our theme music was composed by the ever-talented Asa Irons. This week's background music was by Charles Allin, a.k.a. Jeremy Harris, the artist formerly known as Lazy Magnet. Our guest was the formidable Wileyjack. Seriously, check out his stuff at Macho Femme Man on Instagram. I'm your host, Chrissy Puchere Rapucci. You can find me at atavisceral.com. atavisceral.com, where I post articles and forecasts, offer chart readings, talismanic concoctions, occult services, tarot, divination, and more. Apotuskili.